Tell me if this sounds familiar. You go to the grocery store to pick up a few things. Nothing fancy. Chicken, some pasta, a bag of salad, bread, a dozen eggs, maybe a six-pack for the weekend. You're not splurging, you're not stocking up, just the basics. And then you get to the register, and your jaw drops. Because somehow, that little trip just ran you $140. And you're standing there thinking, what did I even buy? Or maybe it's your electric bill. You open it up, and it's $40 more than last month. And the month before that was already higher than the year before that. And you're turning off lights, you're running the heat a little lower, you're doing everything right. And it just keeps going up. Or it's rent. Or it's your car insurance. Or it's the fact that going out to eat used to be a treat, and now it feels like a financial decision you have to think about. You're not imagining it. You're not bad with money. And you are absolutely not alone. Today, we are talking about the real cost of inflation in 2026. Not the government's tidy little percentage number, but what it actually means for your grocery cart, your utility bills, your rent, and your paycheck. I'm going to break it all down, category by category, with real numbers, because you deserve to understand exactly where your money is going. My name is Olivia, and let's get into it. Okay, so the government just released the latest inflation report on February 13th, and the headline said, inflation is at 2.4%. And a lot of people saw that and thought, great, so we're almost back to normal, right? Wrong. Here's what that number actually means. Prices right now are growing 2.4% higher than they were 1 year ago. That's it. That's all it tells you. What it does not tell you is what prices are compared to 5 years ago. And that, my friend, is the number that should make your stomach drop. 25% in 5 years. That means something that cost you $100 in January of 2020 now costs you $125. That's not a blip. That's not a rounding error. That's a quarter of your purchasing power gone, and it's not coming back. To put that in perspective, in the 5 years before 2020, 2015 to 2020, cumulative inflation was about 10%. So we've seen more than double the price growth in the same amount of time. So when they say 2.4%, they're telling you how fast the car is speeding up right now. They're not telling you how far you've already traveled off the cliff. Now let's talk about what this actually looks like in your life. Because abstract percentages are one thing, your actual bills are another. Let's start where most of us feel it most immediately, the grocery store. Food prices overall are up about 2.9% compared to last year. And before you say, that sounds reasonable, let me break down what's actually in that average. Beef. If you eat beef, I am so sorry. Beef and veal prices are up over 15% compared to a year ago. That's not a trend from a few months ago. Analysts are saying we won't see meaningful relief on beef prices until late 2027. Why? Because the U.S. cattle herd is at its lowest level in 70 years, and you can't just snap your fingers and grow more cattle. Eating out isn't a better deal either. Restaurant and fast food prices are expected to rise 4.6% in 2026, faster than groceries. So the idea that you can just cook at home gets harder, and the idea that you can just grab something quick gets more expensive too. Coffee prices surged because of bad harvests. Eggs had a wild ride thanks to bird flu, though they've come down from their peak. And I want to give credit where it's due. There are some spots of relief. Gas prices have actually dropped. We're seeing averages around or below $2.90 a gallon nationally, which is the cheapest we've seen in years. But here's the thing about relief in one category. It doesn't cancel out the pain in another. Your grocery bill doesn't get cheaper because gas went down. Your family still needs to eat. And every single trip to that store is a reminder of how far your dollar used to go. I want to talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention: your electricity bill. Because unlike groceries, where you at least get to choose what you buy, electricity isn't optional. You can't opt out. You can try to use less, turn off lights, lower the thermostat, unplug things, and your bill still goes up because the price per unit keeps rising. Natural gas prices are up nearly 10% over the past year. So if you heat your home with gas or cook with it, you're feeling that squeeze too. And here's the kicker. This is probably going to get worse before it gets better. Why? Data centers, the facilities powering AI and cloud computing, are consuming massive amounts of electricity and straining power grids across the country. Utilities have been quietly raising rates and filing for more increases. At least 210 gas and electric utilities either raised rates or proposed new increases as of late 2025. And just to drive this home, in some cities, wholesale electricity prices have literally more than doubled since 2020. So when you feel like your utility bills have taken on a life of their own, they kind of have. And the people in charge of setting those rates are very aware of that. And they're still raising them anyway. Now let's talk about the biggest line item in most Americans' budgets: housing. Whether you're renting or own your home, you've felt this. Shelter costs, that's what the government calls it, are up 3% over the past year. That's the annual number. But the cumulative number? Over the past few years, housing has become one of the most significant financial stressors in the country. If you're a renter, you know the story. Leases renewing at numbers that make your eyes water. Landlords raising rent significantly each year because they can. And if you're trying to buy, well, home prices soared during the pandemic boom. Mortgage rates stayed elevated for years. And even though rates came down a bit in late 2025, the monthly payment on a median-priced home is still dramatically higher than it was 4 or 5 years ago. I want you to think about this. If your rent went up even $200 a month over the last 3 years, that's $2,400 more per year coming out of your pocket for the exact same apartment. Same walls, same leaky faucet, same parking spot, just significantly more expensive. And here's what makes housing inflation especially brutal. Unlike beef prices, which could theoretically come down if cattle supply improves, housing doesn't tend to get cheaper. Landlords don't roll back rent. Home prices don't usually drop significantly in the short term. This is a permanent shift in what it costs to live in America. And for low and middle income families who spend a much higher proportion of their income on housing, this hits the hardest. Okay, I have to be fair here, because some of you might be thinking, but Olivia, wages have gone up too. And you're right. Technically, wages have largely kept pace with inflation by federal measures. A Brookings Institution report from mid-2025 found that when you look at average wages overall, they've held their own against price increases since 2020. But here's why that doesn't feel true for millions of people, and it's important. Averages hide everything. When a small number of high earners see big raises, it can pull that average up, even if most workers saw barely anything. And the categories where prices rose the most, food, energy, housing, are the exact categories where lower and middle-income households spend the most. So even if the math on paper says wages kept up, your lived experience in that grocery store line may tell a very different story. A recent Bankrate survey found that 32% of Americans expect their finances to get worse in 2026, the highest level of pessimism in that survey since it began in 2018. And the top concern people named? Inflation, by a landslide. So if you feel like you're running in place, doing everything you're supposed to do, working hard, being responsible, and still somehow falling behind, you are not crazy. The system is just harder right now than the numbers let on. Now, I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't mention one more factor: tariffs. Economists widely expected that President Trump's tariff policies, sweeping import taxes announced in 2025, would push prices higher across the board. And they did. But the impact has been more targeted than feared so far. Furniture, appliances, some electronics, those categories have seen noticeable price bumps tied directly to tariffs. What's kept overall inflation from surging again is that businesses got ahead of it. They built up inventories before the tariffs hit. But that buffer won't last forever. The Federal Reserve itself has acknowledged the risk that tariff-related price pressures could resurface in early 2026. The Fed, by the way, has kept interest rates steady, holding off on more cuts while they watch what happens. Most analysts expect the first rate cut of 2026 to happen around June, but a lot depends on the next few months of data. Okay, I am not going to leave you in the doom, because as bad as this feels, and it is legitimately hard, there are real, practical things you can do to protect yourself. Number 1, audit your bills. Seriously. Pull up your utility bills from the last 12 months and actually look at the trend. Many providers offer budget billing programs that smooth out those spikes. And if you haven't shopped around for things like car insurance or internet service lately, do it. These are areas where you often have more leverage than you think. Number 2, focus your food budget on the categories with the most relief. Eggs, which had sky-high prices from bird flu, are actually forecasted to come down in 2026. Dairy prices are also expected to dip. If beef is killing your grocery budget, this is a real opportunity to rotate your protein game. Number 3, if you have any high-interest debt, especially credit card debt, work aggressively to pay it down while rates are still elevated. The Fed keeping rates high hurts savers less, but it absolutely destroys anyone carrying balances. Number 4, if you haven't had a salary conversation with your employer recently, now is the time. You have data on your side. Prices are up 25% from 2020. That's a real, legitimate, documented argument for why your paycheck needs to reflect your actual cost of living. And number 5, talk about this with your family, with your friends, with people in your community. The more we understand this together, the better equipped we all are to navigate it. The bottom line? We are not in the clear. Inflation has cooled from its 2022 peak of over 9%, but it has not returned to the 2% world we lived in before 2020. And the prices that went up during the surge, they're not coming back down. They are your new baseline. Here's what I want you to walk away from this video knowing. The frustration you feel at the checkout line is real. The tightness you feel at the end of the month is real. The sense that something shifted and nobody really told you the whole story, that's real too. Prices are up 25% since 2020. Electricity bills are up 30% in 4 years. Beef is up 15% in 1 year. Restaurants keep getting more expensive, and your rent has probably never gone back down. That is the true cost of inflation. Not 2.4%, 25%, and rising. If this video helped you understand what's actually happening, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it, because this affects every single one of us. And knowledge is the first step to doing something about it. Drop a comment below and tell me, where are you feeling inflation the most right now? I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.